Thanks, Vic. I'm going to talk a little bit about truth, transparency and treaty, but I'm also going to hijack the agenda a little bit and to talk about truth, treaty and transparency in the mental health context. And we're also going to share a little bit of our time to share one of our initiatives which our knowledge holder group has been working on the last 18 months around suicide prevention. So I'm going to tap out kind of halfway through and I'm going to bring Nicola on and she's going to talk about that fantastic work. So as people may or may not know, I'm an elected member of the Southwest region for the First Peoples Assembly of Victoria. I'm coming to the end of my term and we're right in the midst of elections for the new Gullenwell, which the Minister spoke to today, so I'm really glad that she covered that off in her speech. But I think that one of the things that I would say in my role as an Assembly member, that we've had a signed treaty now in Victoria for almost 6 months, right? It got royal assent in October and the sky hasn't fallen in. And so I think that was a big fear for people, that, you know, what was going to come with that change and, you know, the uncertainty of what a treaty era might entail. So I just wanted to start off with that premise to the treaty space. But I'm going to talk a little bit about truth, treaty and transparency in the theme of today's partnership forum around transparency. And I acknowledged country yesterday, but I really wanted to acknowledge the young women this morning in their welcome to country, but in particular the use of language and how special and important language is for our healing. And it was one of the first things taken away from us as Aboriginal people through colonisation. And it's been one of the hardest things for us to revitalise, reclaim. But it's so important to our stories, our connections to country and us as people. So just acknowledge those young women and really I'm appreciative of being able to witness something so special and so cultural. So I'm really grateful for that. I've been off crook and I've been away with some sorry business, so I'm a little bit more scripted than I usually am because I haven't had the time to really prepare. So just bear with me while I read some of my notes. But really, it's more about reflections, and I just thought that I would just talk a little bit about reflecting on truth, transparency and treaty. Like, you can't have our treaty without truth. And I'm really grateful for many people, our elders in particular, but also our specialists in that social and emotional wellbeing space, and yourself, Honey Jill, who gave evidence through the truth-telling process. It was a really profound process, as Minister spoke to as well, about capturing our hidden histories and stories that are confronting and are challenging, but are really important for our way forward, because Uncle Jim Berg used to always say to us as we were young kids, you don't know where you're going if you don't know where you've been. And us as a country need to know that, right? We need to know where we've been, not to kind of dwell in the past, not to provide guilt, not to have shame or anything like that, but to really just understand how history is really impacting on the outcomes of our people today. So anyway, truth, treaty and transparency. These are not just words we say to signal progress. They are principles that demand action, especially in a system as critical, as personal and as fragile as the mental health care. In Victoria, we stand at a turning point. We've had the Royal Commission into mental health system, where it laid bare what many people and families and communities have known for years, that the system was not just under strain, it was failing those who needed it most. It failed in access, in equity, in cultural safety and in accountability. And most importantly, it failed in trust. So today I want to speak about what it truly means to embed truth, treaty and transparency into Victoria's mental health system, not as slogans or words, but as foundations for reform and for change. So for me, truth means listening and believing. It means acknowledging the lived experiences of people who have navigated the system and often felt unheard, dismissed or re-traumatised. But truth also means confronting the data, because the data tells a really strong story that we can't ignore. So in Victoria, Aboriginal people make up about 1% of the population, yet account roughly for 4% of those receiving clinical mental health care. Around 1 in 3 Aboriginal Victorians are experiencing high or very high levels of psychological distress, which is significantly higher than that of the broader population. And 1 in 5 Aboriginal children begin school already at risk of emotional or behavioural challenges. And the most confronting of all, and the coroner has released a report today, I think it's after 10, so we're allowed to talk about it. It was embargoed till 10 o'clock this morning. The Aboriginal people in Victoria are dying by suicide at around 3 times the rate of the general population, with more than half of those deaths people under the age of 35. Truth also means confronting the reality of the alcohol and other drug harm in our communities. In Victoria, Aboriginal people are nearly 13 times more likely to need access to alcohol and other drug treatment services, and almost 7 times more likely to present at emergency departments due to alcohol and other drug-related harms. Young people are particularly affected with some of the hospitals, like some of the highest rates of crisis presentations in our hospital system. And Aboriginal Victorians are dying from overdose at more than 3 times the rate of the broader population. These are not separate issues. They are deeply connected. They are connected to trauma, to grief, to disconnection from culture, community and country. And they are connected to a system that often responds late when people are already in crisis. And these are not just statistics, and people have heard me say this before. They are our lives, they are our families, and they are our communities. Truth requires us to clearly say the system is not delivering equitable outcomes, and without that honesty, reform will always fall short. But truth also asks us to recognise something deeper than that for our communities, that mental health and alcohol and other drugs cannot be separated from the importance and need of healing. Healing from trauma, healing from loss, healing from the ongoing impacts of colonisation, disconnection and exclusion. This is why social and emotional wellbeing must sit at the heart of change. Social and emotional wellbeing is not just about treating illness. It's about strengthening connection to culture, to community, to country, to family, and to identity. It's about recognising that wellbeing is collective, it's not just individualised. This is powerfully captured in Batcho's Connection is Prevention campaign, which Nicola's going to yarn to you about. Its message is simple but profound. Strong connections to culture, community, and each other are not just protective factors, they are life-saving. Prevention does not begin in hospitals or in crisis services. It begins in community, in relationships, and in cultural strength. Healing services led by Aboriginal communities are essential. They create spaces where people feel safe, understood, and respected, where culture is not just an add-on, but the foundation of care. These services address the root cause of distress, not just the symptoms. And if we continue to invest only in clinical and crisis response, we will continue to fall short. Real reform requires sustained investment in culturally led healing and in social and emotional wellbeing services, and also respond holistically to alcohol and other drugs used, alcohol and other drug use, which needs to be designed by community, delivered by community, and accountable to community. So as I said in the start, we are now in treaty era. And I don't know whether it's controversial for me to say as an Assembly member, but treaty is not going to address the social determinants as we see it now. Like, just because we've signed the treaty, it's not going to make that change. And as we know with all agreements that we've made and partnerships that we've formed, that we've got that foundation to that, but the hard work comes through the relationships, through the partnerships, and through those commitments. So although treaty is created and brought a really important part to our history, particularly for us as First Peoples, that our voice is not silenced anymore, and that we are, as First Peoples, taking our rightful place as First Peoples of this state and this nation, and what comes with that, those responsibilities. And so, to me, the treaty is about partnership. It's not about paternalism, which we often see in a government relationship kind of setting. And in Victoria, the treaty process represents this historic opportunity to reshape how systems are designed and delivered. And in the context of mental health and alcohol and other drug reform, treaty means ensuring that Aboriginal voices are not just consulted but empowered to lead. Self-determination must be more than a principle. It must be embedded in funding decisions, service design and governance structures. Aboriginal-led mental health, healing and alcohol and other drug services are not an alternative model. We are not an alternative model. They are essential to delivering culturally safe and effective care. Treaty challenges us to rethink power, and I'm so glad that in Ilani Jill's presentation and the Minister's presentation as well, that we speak about power, because that's what is at the core. Who holds it, who shares it, and who has been excluded from it. And if we are serious about change, we must be equally serious about redistribution of that power. I'll talk a little bit about transparency, and also I'm glad to hear that we're all on par because we didn't compare our notes. But at the core of transparency is trust. And how do we build that trust? For too long, the mental health and alcohol and other drug systems have been difficult to navigate and even harder to hold accountable. People have struggled to understand their rights, their options, and the decisions being made about their care, treatment and support. Transparency means clear communication, open data and genuine accountability. It means acknowledging when things go wrong and explaining how they'll be fixed. It means tracking outcomes, not just activity, and being honest about whether the changes are actually improving people's lives. It also means being transparent about investment, ensuring that funding for Aboriginal-led healing and social and emotional wellbeing services is not only promised but delivered, sustained and protected. But transparency is not just about information, it's about inclusion. It's about ensuring that consumers, carers and communities, especially our Aboriginal communities, have a real voice in shaping the services that we so heavily rely on. When we bring these three principles together, so truth, treaty and transparency, we begin to see a different kind of change in the system. We see a system that listens before it acts, a system that supports healing, not just crisis response, a system that strengthens connection as prevention, a system that requires the link between mental health, substance use and social and emotional wellbeing, a system that shares power rather than centralises it, and a system that earns trust rather than it demands it. This is not easy, it's not an easy task, and change on this scale requires sustained commitment, political courage and cultural change. It requires us to move beyond the short-term fixes and invest in the long-term transformation. But the alternative, continuing with systems that we know are not working, is just not acceptable. And I think we talked about it yesterday. We're in 2026. It's just not acceptable. Every person in Victoria deserves access to care that is compassionate, culturally safe and accountable. Every family deserves to feel supported and not abandoned. And every community deserves a system that reflects its needs, values and voices. If we take these three elements, truth, transparency and treaty, seriously, and if we centre healing, social and emotional wellbeing, connection and culturally led responses to alcohol and other drugs use within our communities, we will just be able to see a change in the system we won't just be able to see a change in the system, but we'll be able to really transform it. And so, as I mentioned earlier in my speech, that today the coroner released their annual report into Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander deaths by suicide. And I just wanted to quote the state coroner in that report this morning, because it really speaks to those key points that I've spoken about today as well. But the ongoing disparity in suicide rates between Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people and non-Indigenous population in Victoria is deeply concerning. Evidence-based approaches to prevention are crucial. Sharing our data and insights helps support at every level, from local communities, Aboriginal-led organisations to public health authorities and government, all have a role to play. So I'm going to finish that there, and now I'm going to invite the wonderful Nicola Perry-Peters, who's a director at the Ballot-Dern Centre, to speak specifically about our Connection is Prevention campaign. And so also just wanted to kind of acknowledge that as we move into that conversation that we are going to talk about suicide, some of the information that we do share may be triggering for people. So I just wanted to give people that disclaimer as well. But thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Please, I'm a little bit nervous, and it's always a hard gig coming after Sheree because she's such a great speaker. But I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners and pay my respects to their elders past and present, and to my elders who without I wouldn't be here today. So as Sheree said, my name's Nicola. I'm a proud Wurundjeri woman, director of the Ballot-Dern Centre, and I also lead the suicide prevention team. So I'm just going to the slide. So the name of our knowledge holder group is the Gaka Yapanyu Burundacha, which means holding the light in the darkness, which was a name gifted to us from the Wotjobaluk language group. And I think, the meaning is so significant to the work that we do in suicide prevention. So I'm really excited to share some information about some new initiatives that the suicide prevention team are working in partnership with the knowledge holders, and which have recently been soft launched. I do use the word excited lightly, as I know that suicide is not a topic that everyone likes to talk about, but it's so important that we get better at saying the word and encouraging our mob to have a yarn, so they feel comfortable accessing help when they need it most without shame, and these initiatives will help with that, which is the exciting part. So this is our artwork. You'll see, so we did have an artist, Tani Jarvis, who came and done the outline, but in between parts, everyone from the knowledge holder were able to share their journey and share their stories through art, so we're really proud of that. The key initiatives that we have are our online service directory, which will enhance service navigation and access to culturally safe services and resources. The awareness raising campaign to elevate the voice of lived experience and reduce the stigma attached to suicide. And we're also working on some targeted tools and resources in response to community priorities and needs. And another important aspect of our work is the delivery of the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander mental health first aid training. So these resources are community-led and backed by self-determination, and they strengthen the choice and help services to be easier for our mob to reach. And as Sheree mentioned, it is even more important to have these conversations when you consider the Victorian Coroner's Court report released today, indicates that the suicide rate for Aboriginal people remains at nearly 3 times higher than that of the rate of Aboriginal people. And although the numbers fell slightly from 25 in 2024 to 21 in 2025, it is still 21 too many lives lost, which affects not just our families but our whole communities. So the following initiatives they have taken time and working with our knowledge holders. These initiatives are truly Aboriginal designed, developed and now implemented. These are the result of my team and the knowledge holders' dedicated work over the last 18 months. But we'd also like to thank the investment from the government and the support from Sparrow, and we hope that we can continue this work through future investment in this budget. The first initiative is an online service directory called Black Tracks, which is the first Aboriginal specific directory in Victoria for mob to find culturally safe mental health and suicide prevention services. So as you can see, the name came about from our knowledge holders. So the black stands for in spelling it BLAK, which is a self-determined term. But the tracks also represents Aboriginal trackers that drew on thousands of years of cultural knowledge in order to locate what they were looking for. So we thought it was a name that sort of people could resonate with because it was a bit catchy for our younger mob, but also again had some meaning behind it as well. So the directory highlights services delivered through ACOs in Victoria and allows users to search by service type, location, postcode, cohort, language name and topic. So I would really encourage you to check it out and use it and share it and shape it as it grows. A bit what it looks like. So there's 2 versions, one for computers, but also we have a mobile version as well. So these are the key functions. As you can see that there's the search function, so this is the landing page, the search results, but then we also do have an interactive map as well. These numbers are a bit out of date now, but interesting also. We did soft launch the Black Tracks just before Christmas because we were really knew that the Christmas New Year's period is such a important time for people to be able to access services. So we haven't got an up-to-date engagement number, but we're pretty happy with just the numbers that we've got so far. The second initiative is the Connection is Prevention, Just Have a Yarn awareness raising campaign. The campaign features real mob who have lived and living experience of loss from suicide of family members or friends, or have struggled with mental health themselves and are sharing their stories to help others. At the heart of this campaign is a short, powerful film that demonstrates how a simple conversation can break stigma, isolation and save lives. We also have some posters and postcards available down the back, table right there, to help you promote and empower your local mob. Along with this, we are launching a stakeholder promotional kit which will be available to all ACOs very soon.
Our mob carries so much, and sometimes the services meant to help us don't meet our needs. It leaves families feeling powerless, trying to hold everything together.
My mate was struggling. He was going through a lot. Losing him, that was one of the hardest things I've ever been through.
Growing up queer in a rural town was isolating. Even when I moved to the city, I still didn't feel connected in any healthy or meaningful ways. I felt hopeless, and like asking for help was asking too much.
My loved ones felt alone, disempowered. When someone's in that headspace, they can't always think straight. It can be so sudden, so impulsive, and the impact has been irreparable. The absence continues forever.
A good counsellor helped me. I've been seeing them for 5 years now. My friends and my family, they played a critical role, even when I didn't realise it. A mate took me out one day and I realised I hadn't had fun in a really long time. Support brought me back.
Talking helped me too. Being around mob who understood, knowing these thoughts can pass when someone walks beside you.
I reached out to others who'd been through it. Those of us left behind, we gently support each other, creating a safety plan, listening, letting people know they're not alone.
Being vulnerable creates space for healing. Mob supporting mob. That's what keeps us going.
It's a journey. Hard days come back, but there will be a time you feel better again.
You're not alone. There's always support, family, friends, services, always someone who cares.
Call on your ancestors. Their strength is your strength, and they will walk beside you.
You belong. You're valued. Suicidal thoughts are thoughts. They don't have to become actions.
Connection is prevention. Just have the yarn.
Thank you. I get really emotional every time I do watch it, so it really does resonate. And just a little bit of a tidbit that the young guy kicking football is actually my son. So yeah, as I said, I hope you enjoyed the campaign. But yeah, we are working on several other initiatives as well, so please keep your eyes out for them when they are launched, and please help us in sharing these resources and making the support easier for our mobs to access. But if you would like to have a demonstration of black tracks, I'm happy to run through it, so please just come and see me at any time throughout the day. Thank you.